meeting of the Board of Education of the Town of Westfield in the County of Union, New Jersey at 7:30 p.m. on the evening of Tuesday, December 6, 2016, in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey. The purpose of the meeting is to transact the regular business of the board and to conduct a board workshop. This is to advise the general public and to instruct that it be recorded in the minutes that in compliance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, entitled the Open Public Meetings Act, the Westfield School Board on Thursday, December 1st, 2016, caused to be posted at the office of the Board of Education, located at 302 Elm Street, Westfield, New Jersey, and delivered to the Westfield Leader, the Star Ledger, the Westfield Library, Town Clerk of Westfield, Tap into Westfield, and Patch.com, a meeting notice setting forth the time, date, and location of this meeting. Dana, roll call.
Mark Friedman.
Here.
Brendan Galligan.
Here.
Robert Garrison.
Here.
Chris Langhart.
Here.
Ginny Lights.
Here.
Gretchen Oleg. Peggy Oster.
Here.
Charles Astroff.
Here.
Amy Root.
Here. Chris, will you lead us in the flag salute?
Yes.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Before I go into our announcements for this evening, I just want to let everybody know that the board has an initiative to go paperless. So if you see us all here with our computers open, it's because,
I'm not surfing the web, just so you know.
or their phones. They are not surfing the web, but rather we are starting our new paperless initiative, and hopefully we'll make the environment better. Tonight is a very special night. I'd like to honor Ginny Lights for her 15 years of service on the board. Ginny, would you like to come up to the podium with me? Sure. Thank you.
Got a little wet.
I'd like to present Ginny with this resolution from the Board of Education from Westfield, New Jersey. Whereas Ginny Lights has devoted 15 years on the Westfield Board of Education, committed to serving the children, families, and community members of Westfield. And whereas serving as president from 2007 to 2010 and vice president from 2004 to 2007, has provided significant leadership and vision to the Westfield Board of Education. And whereas, having chaired every one of the board's standing committees, has contributed her experience, knowledge, analytical, and negotiating skills to continue the tradition of excellence in the Westfield Public Schools. And whereas, in her multifaceted roles on the board and serving as liaison to school PTOs and county organizations, and as a driving force behind advances in facilities, technology, energy, and planning, Ginny Lights has volunteered thousands of hours of her time to the Westfield Public Schools. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this Board of Education recognizes Ginny Lights for her outstanding service on the Westfield Board of Education from 2001 to 2016, and that this resolution be presented to Ginny Lights on December 6, 2016, and that a copy of this resolution attesting to the appreciation of the Board of Education become part of the official minutes of this meeting. Thank you. I just would like to say a couple words, and then I'll turn the podium over to Ginny and open up the floor to first the board and then to members of the public. I went back this afternoon to the Westfield Leader from, I think it was April 17th of 2001, which is the Tuesday, actually it was the Tuesday before Ginny was elected. And the headline in the Westfield Leader read, voters in Westfield to decide fate of school budget and elect BOE candidates. And 15 years ago, we were still voting for a budget every year. But times have changed, and we no longer vote for the budget as long as we remain within the 2% cap. Back then, the budget had $4.5 million that Westfield received in state aid. Most people would think our state aid would have gone up, but actually it's gone down to $2.5 million. So back then, also in the paper, they brought up a couple of key points that were to be addressed in the budget. And at that time, we were adding a new math curriculum, and we were introducing foreign language studies in the 4th grade. Most people take it for granted it was here forever. Yes, we continue to improve our school system every year, and Ginny has truly been instrumental in achieving all of our goals. As the resolution said, Ginny served as both vice president and president over the tenure on the board. She's also chaired every standing committee, which is amazing. She is currently the chair of long-range planning, where she just completed our 5-year strategic plan, and Ginny has worked on 3 different strategic plans. She is also currently the chair of the negotiations committee, where Ginny was a vital part of achieving negotiations with all of our employees, along with selecting and hiring our current superintendent, Dr. Dolan. Ginny is passionate about education. Her passion has helped the board to continue to enhance our education system for 15 years. She was a key player in developing our Walls to Windows technology plan and bringing our schools into the 21st century with wireless and technology capabilities in all schools. She helped establish Lincoln School into an early childhood learning center, enhancing Kaler Field with turf, and creating an energy conservation program that has saved the district over $3 million. I could go on and on with Ginny's many accomplishments, but on behalf of the entire board and our community, I'd just like to say thank you. Your knowledge of all things having to do with the Westfield Public Schools will be sincerely missed. You will always remain a friend to this town and to the schools district. And I hope as you walk and drive around town, you will remember us fondly and know that you were instrumental in developing the excellent education system we have here in Westfield.
I could go now. You're not going to invite other people first?
You want to do that? Actually, you can decide.
Yeah, I think you should invite everybody. I'll go last. Thank you. I like to see.
First, I'd like to invite the board with any remarks that they may want to give to Ginny.
So I'm going to be reading a letter that Gretchen wrote. Gretchen wasn't able to be here this evening, so let me do that. So on behalf of Gretchen, I'm sorry that I cannot be there tonight to recognize Ginny Lights' last meeting after an unprecedented 15 years of service on the Westfield Board of Education. I look forward to toasting you in person at our annual board dinner, Ginny. I didn't want to miss the chance, however, to publicly express my heartfelt and personal gratitude for your service. Ginny is genuinely unique to this board. There is no one who has so diligently served the students and staff of Westfield as a board member, and no other community member possesses the vast institutional knowledge of the workings of our district the way she does. In my view, Ginny's most significant contribution to the district has been her representation of our board in the negotiations process. She has an uncanny ability to discern and balance the needs of our dedicated staff and the budgetary realities of our district, such that everyone feels supported and heard. She rightly has earned a tremendous amount of trust and respect within the district. In addition, Ginny has contributed her considerable intellect, sensibility, and energy to the issues faced by every one of our board's committees, legislation to long-range planning, finance to facilities, curriculum to policies. It is almost inconceivable to imagine the Westfield Board of Education without Ginny's voice. As one of the dozens of board members who has benefited from your mentorship and leadership, and on behalf of our 6,000 plus students, several hundred staff and administrators, and the members of our board, I thank you. You will be missed. So that was on behalf of Gretchen. So, and then on behalf of me, I ditto everything that Gretchen said. So from a personal perspective, I've been on the board with you, I guess, a little over 5 years. Clearly I've come a long way in my understanding and learning, and I think a lot of that is being able to have sat across the table from you. And have you shake your head when what I was saying you agreed with, and sometimes shaking your head when you didn't agree with. But I appreciate all the input that you gave in helping me grow as a board member, and then also all the things that you've done that everybody's talked about on behalf of the district. So thank you very much and good luck.
Thanks, Mark.
I too would like to ditto pretty much everything Gretchen said, because she hit it all right there on the head. I just want to thank you. When I got on the board 4 years ago, I had no idea what I was doing. I was 23, and I thought we were going to be adversaries. And you turned into a mentor and somebody I'd consider a friend. So thank you for everything that you've taught me over the last 4 years.
You did well.
You've stopped staring at me across the room as often.
Did it work?
It did.
Jenny, I just wanted to say something. I sit next to you, so I can't see you shaking your head no at me. I'll have to watch the videos. We overlapped for 2 years, and I think we're going to miss your institutional knowledge, like Gretchen said. When we sit there in the negotiation sessions and we go through these contracts, and you know every provision, and you know all the laws and what they're referring to, it's really just amazing. It's going to be hard for this board to replace that, and I've benefited from listening to you and kind of soaking in the knowledge you've gathered up over the years. So it's been a pleasure for me to serve with you, and I think this board's going to miss you, and you've been a credit to this Board of Ed in this town, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll say something as well. I feel bad because the first time I ever reached out to Ginny outside of this boardroom was after your loss. And, I regret not having the ability to get to know you as well as some of the other board members. But I did warn you that I will be reaching out to you for advice and thoughts on things, and so I do appreciate that. I look forward to a continued relationship.
You got it.
With Robert's sentiment, I only had a year also, and everyone else was able to gain from your knowledge, so I feel a little bit of gypped as it comes to that. But, on behalf of being a resident of Westfield, I would like to thank you for your time. And in listening to everything that Peggy said, that Mark said, there's definitely going to be a big gap, and a lot of us are going to have to step up a lot harder. But I thank you for your time.
I come at it from a slightly different perspective, only a few months together on the board, but I've known you for many years, and you are one of the main reasons I'm here. So I want to thank you for welcoming me as a committee member, as a community member many, many years ago, getting involved with the Lincoln School Bond through the PTC, getting involved with one of the long-term planning sessions. So you've always been warm and helpful and gracious, and it is amazing to think of all the knowledge you have. And I'm going to miss that, and I'm going to miss your warm character, and thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
And I have one more thing to say. All of you have to step up and second all of them. Just because Ginny isn't going to be here anymore.
Well, now we'll have a chance to
Yeah.
actually say.
Jenny always beats me,
Don't
so.
forget to raise your hand.
Well, at least Robert knows parliamentary procedure.
And if I could do two things. So one, I wish the people who are watching this on television, I wish they could see the audience. And I wish that they could also see the weather outside. Tonight is a miserable night. The rain is not pleasant at all, and yet the boardroom is packed, and it's packed with community members, and where there are representatives. We have paraprofessionals, we have teachers, we have administrators, we have former board members, and I'm sure I'm missing a few groups out there. But representatives of all the groups that make up our community came out in bad weather to support someone who has done so much for our students and our schools. And I have one former board member couldn't be here this evening, and she asked me to read this. This is from Ann Carey. Ginny, I want to thank you for your outstanding knowledge about the inner workings of the Westfield School District and your dedication to our children. In many ways, you are the board historian. Every time we tackled a new problem, you had 17 folders and 12 binders to show, and her husband is nodding, I think, to show us that the problem had been confronted before. In particular, your expertise in our negotiations with our associations helped us to sign contracts that benefited the entire community. On a personal note, I thank you for your help when I first decided to run for the board in 2005. And yes, there were folders and binders of helpful information that Ginny was kind enough to share with me. Looking forward, I do want to assure you that there is life after the board. Good luck, and thank you, Ginny, for the countless hours you have given to better the education of the children of Westfield. Sincerely, Ann Ormsby Carey.
So I'd like to open it up. If anybody from the audience would like to come say a few words to Ginny, please just come forward to the podium.
All right.
I needed somebody to start.
Mr. McKesson.
Good, we should be out at least an hour, right?
Right. Rich Matesic, 614 Lenox Avenue in Westfield. She would have stopped me if I didn't do that.
Is this about the lights at Kayla?
I just want to say thank you. I didn't prepare any remarks, but I really, I think of you as sort of the anchor or the compass on the board, and Ann used the words historian, perhaps that's more eloquent, but I really, you've been on the board for 15 years, and Westfield's tradition for academic excellence has only gotten stronger and seen more throughout the country, and it maintains high rankings. That's not an accident, and it's done because of everybody in this room, the board and administration, but somebody has to maintain some constancy, normalcy, and you have done that. And certainly the 6 years I was on the board, it was tremendously helpful to think that, well, what do we do in this situation? You always had input. How should this work? You always had input. And having the base in the history and understanding, particularly in an institution that's run on people, where you may have an answer to something, it may be the best answer in the world, but if you don't understand the people and what they've been through and what they've agreed to and how they feel, you can't move forward, and you can't have a tradition of excellence that has grown so much and endured. I'm thankful for that. My kids, I thank you on their behalf, because they have done well in the system, and on behalf of all the kids in the district, really, you've given a lot, and it shows. So thank you.
Not yet. Not yet.
Kim Rhodes, 10 Webster Place. Ginny, I was on the board when you joined us. It seems like forever ago, and it probably was. I'm not going to speak very long. I just wanted to let you know that I've had the privilege of serving this community in multiple ways, but it's never seemed as much as what you do. And as a parent, as a former board member, as a current teacher in our district, I appreciate your time, because I know what's involved, and we're very privileged to have had you. Thank you.
I was waiting for you, Gary.
Gary Mccready, former board member, formerly of Mohican Drive. Again, I'll keep my remarks short. It was just a pleasure to serve with you, Ginny, fellow technologist, and I might even say a bit of a geek, but it was just, going over all of the details and all of the projects and everything that we brought forward. I know that your focus was always on what was best for the district, best for the kids of Westfield, and I think all that has shown throughout the years that you've served. Again, if you haven't realized it already, Ginny was really the Ginny of all board trades, truly a Renaissance board member. And really, the challenge I give is for some, or I hope all of the board members, really to shoot for that bar that Ginny set so high in terms of everything that she did. And all I can say is that the board's loss, I truly hope, with all Ginny's drive, will be some other organizations' gain, because you can really contribute a lot. So good luck.
must have paid a lot to get all this stuff.
Julia Walker, 169 Harrison Avenue. I was Jennings vice president forever, and it was a remarkable journey. Jenny works harder than anybody realizes. She reads every word. She makes sure that she understands the perspective of all the folks who might be involved in a situation without losing the idea that the point is, and she meant it when she said it's all about the kids. So the privilege of working with you is A, learning how, B, understanding where to stand when the issue gets difficult, because they do. We had some years back when we got state funding and back when we voted on a budget and a couple other laws got passed. It was wonderful times, very interesting, and you kept it focused and within the sphere of Westfield improving as a school district as a whole. And we all thank you for that.
Last chance. Good evening, and thank you to my fellow board members for honoring me tonight. I'm overwhelmed by your kind words, and I'm grateful to have worked alongside each of you. I've appreciated your personal support for me, including your patience, grace, and humor, as I've attempted to model strong leadership and boardsmanship. While proposing and discussing, well, okay, sometimes you must have felt like I was admonishing, but not really. Ways to employ appropriate and effective processes, practices, procedures that are the cornerstone of good governance. I want to thank Dr. Dolan, Mr. Panaro, Dr. Weissman, Mrs. Sullivan, Mrs. Ball, for your educational leadership, professionalism, and tireless devotion to the Westfield Public Schools and its tradition of excellence. Each of you has supported me by allowing me to ask questions that sought to broaden my understanding of your roles and responsibilities. Your answers allowed me to learn more about my role and responsibilities as a board member. I value each of you. Our conversations over the years have given me an appreciation for and insight into the nuances of managing and operating a school district which educates over 6,300 children, employs over 600 uniquely qualified individuals, and manages a budget of over $100 million. Each of you is an exceptional educator, profoundly talented professional in your area of expertise. It has been my joy to have worked in partnership with you and to have learned from you. Thank you to Westfield's dedicated administrators, supervisors, teachers, counselors, librarians, nurses, secretaries, paraprofessionals, custodians and maintenance workers, and all other support staff who arrive every day ready to serve the district, each in your distinctively capable and individual way. You are unparalleled in your abilities and dedication. The Westfield schools and our students thrive because of you. Thank you to the former board members who are here tonight and have shared their kind words. Each of you has touched me in a special way. Each of you has helped to shape me into the person I am today. I want to thank the parents and residents of Westfield who have supported my board work over the years, and my friends, some of whom are here tonight, who have shown me unwavering support. I have grown to appreciate the vital connection between our schools, parents, and the community. You have stopped me in the grocery store, on the sidelines of a soccer field, hailed me on the streets of Westfield, always expressing your appreciation for my work on the board, while I invariably told you it was a labor of love. It remains a labor of love to this day. And finally, I want to thank my husband, who is here tonight. David, you have been a constant source of joy and support, and your presence here tonight fills my heart, even though you wanted me to throw it out all my paperwork. I have no data left. This is all I have. It's Got to pull it out of the heart. It has been an honor and my privilege to have served the residents and children of Westfield on the Board of Education for the past 15 years and 8 months. As a board member, my goal has always been to develop policies and provide oversight that would allow our exceptional administrators to successfully manage and operate our schools, schools that would ensure that each student is educated to become a resilient member of society with the tools, resources, and opportunities they need to reach their individual potential, each with the ability and desire to be a lifelong learner and have the understanding of what it means to be a global citizen in the 21st century. By my rough estimate, during my tenure as a board member, over 12,000 different students have attended Westfield schools. And it is my fervent hope that each of them, in their own time, has discovered their individual passion for learning, and that along their educational journey, a spark has ignited each of them in their desire to reach their potential. I'm the daughter of a school teacher and also the daughter of a detail-oriented bank loan officer who taught me right from wrong and guided me toward my professional career in information technology. My dad taught me that if a job is worth doing, it's worth doing right, whether it's dotting I's or crossing T's. I'm sure more than one of you in the audience has been the recipient of my editor's redlining pen and my quest for appropriate, effective, and comprehensible language expressed in policy or procedure. I thank you for indulging me. As I leave the board, I have some hard-earned words of wisdom for my fellow current and future board members. Trust your superintendent and be a trustworthy board member. You will not find a more knowledgeable or capable educational leader than Dr. Dolan. Hold confidences and be reliable. Your trust in the superintendent will be reflected back to you. Come to meetings and come prepared to work. Read your notes ahead of time, ask questions before the meeting, arrive with knowledge and understanding, but keep an open mind. Be an active listener. As you listen, think about the speaker's perspective. Put yourself in their shoes, gain full understanding of their data points and their point of view. Try not to get your exercise by jumping to conclusions. When faced with a situation or issue that has no clear or easy resolution, the first question you as a board member should ask is, do we have a policy for that? What does it say? Know what good boardsmanship looks like and model those skills and behavior. Become well acquainted with the roles and responsibilities of a board member. Demonstrate your knowledge through your actions. Understand the value and tenets of good governance. Become knowledgeable about the district's policies and procedures. Understand that as a board member, your primary goal, in addition to hiring and annually evaluating the superintendent, is to establish clear and appropriate policies that govern the operation of the school district and reflect the values and beliefs of the community, and to continuously monitor the proper implementation of those policies. Understand the value of collaboration and the positive effects of consensus management. Get to know fellow board members, including their interests and their biases. When faced with a challenge where members hold differing views, air your differences behind the scenes. Try to find common ground and a shared outcome. Tell the board and the public your point of view, whether contrary or not, but understand that the community appreciates the shared commitment of a consensus decision. And finally, this is my vision for the Westfield Public Schools. Number one, all of our students achieve academic and personal success, understand and exhibit good health and healthy lifestyles, and become lifelong learners and good citizens who value community in a global society. Number two, our school district attracts and retains highly qualified, fairly compensated teachers who, as lifelong learners, are continually motivated to deliver the highest quality differentiated instruction that supports the needs of each student while sharing their skills and insights with colleagues and peers. Number three, Westfield is recognized and valued for the superior educational and instructional leadership and dedication of our superintendent, supervisors, administrators, teachers, and staff. Number 4. Westfield parents and community residents are knowledgeable about and actively engaged in supporting their children and our schools. Number 5, the Westfield Public School District thrives and continues to garner state and national recognition for its tradition of educational excellence, evidenced by our students' consistently creative outputs and high achievement. And finally, number 6, our Board of Education establishes appropriate policies and provides continual and strong oversight of these policies. The Board of Education members value and demonstrate good boardsmanship and thoughtful governance that results in effective leadership that values collaboration, innovative problem solving, and a commitment to consensus management. I thank you for this honor tonight. It has been my pleasure to have served this community and its children as a member of the Westfield Board of Education.
Maybe you want to take a picture with them? Good.
Show up. Since we're here, you want us to move?
It's fine.
Thank you, my friends.
There you go.
Thanks, Mom. Thank you for coming tonight. I sent a copy to Lori.
Oh, good.
And Gretchen.
Once again, thank you, Ginny, for everything.
Oh, thanks, Peggy.
I'd like to continue. Do any board members have announcements? Amy?
Sure. I'll do what I want to make us here.
Don't interfere with the kissing.
I'm sorry.
Don't interfere with the kissing.
No, I know, that's why. Dancing a little bit here before I.
All right, back to the
Back to business.
courtroom.
Back to business. All right. Congratulations to Kimberly Legan and Ryan Daly, who on December 2nd received the 2016 Global Understanding Award presented by the National Council for the Social Studies. The Westfield High School Social Studies teachers were presented the award at a special ceremony in Washington, D.C. during the 96th Annual Conference of the National Council for the Social Studies, entitled Civic Learning and Cultural Inquiry in a Changing World. The award is given to a team of teachers who help students increase their understanding of the world. Ms. Legan and Mr. Ryan were recognized for their co-developed project, Connecting with the Indigenous, Global Citizens Take Action. In addition, both teachers were featured presenters at the annual conference.
Charles? Nope.
You got anything, Brent?
Brendan?
I got it.
He's on the side.
This is from the intermediate schools. The counseling departments of both Edison and Roosevelt Intermediate Schools announced that on Tuesday, January 10th, they will host student screenings followed by an evening screening for adults of the film Screenagers. The 7 p.m. showing will be held at Edison Intermediate School. Screenagers is a 68-minute film, not 67, directed by Delaney Rustin, MD, about the impact of the digital age on children and how to help families minimize harmful effects and find balance. Screenagers probes into the vulnerable corners of family life, including the director's own, and depicts messy struggles over social media, video games, academics, and internet addiction. Through surprising insights from authors and brain scientists, solutions emerge on how parents can empower kids to best navigate the digital world. All parents and community members are invited for the evening performance, which our counselors assure us will be informative and thought-provoking. For more information about the film, families are encouraged to go to the website www.screenagersmovie.com.
Thank you. Rob?
None.
Chris?
Yes. You may have heard. Congratulations are in order again to the Blue Devils football team for winning the state championship a second time. They earned their second consecutive title on December 3rd at MetLife Stadium in a rematch, again defeating Bridgewater Raritan. Besides winning the North 2 Group 5 state championship, the Blue Devils have accomplished a 25-game winning streak, the state's best. Congratulations to the players and to head coach Jim DeSarno and all the coaches, students, and supporters of our state champions. This sports season also ended with these titles. Boys soccer was crowned Union County champions, field hockey won the conference title, and boys and girls cross country captured county titles. So congratulations to all.
Jenny?
Yes. Regarding the performing arts, a total of 28 winter concerts will take place in the Westfield Public Schools this season. The entertainment began with Roseville Intermediate School's band concert on December 5th and will conclude on February 11th with the Westfield High School Chorale of Love Songs. All performances begin at 7 p.m. unless otherwise noted on the schedule posted on the district website. And in addition, Westfield senior citizens are once again invited to enjoy the final rehearsal of Westfield High School's Winter Choral Concert on Wednesday, December 21st in the high school auditorium, 550 Dorian Road, from 11:45 a.m. to 12:20 p.m. All concerts are free of charge, and seniors should remember to stop by at the business office to pick up your golden pass.
Okay, I have two announcements. My favorite announcement, the Westfield Public Schools will be closed for winter break from December 26th through January 2nd. We wish our entire community a wonderful holiday and with family and friends. We look forward to working on your behalf in 2017, and we will see you next year. My other announcement is for our next Board of Education meeting. The next Board of Education meeting will be held on Thursday. Mark your calendars. Thursday, January 5th at 7:30 p.m. in the boardroom. It will be the organization meeting of the board. Okay. I'd like to recognize the public for any agenda items, only agenda items at this time. Seeing nobody come to the podium, I'd like the board to approve the minutes of the board meeting held on November 15th, 2016, and the private minutes of November 15th, 2016. Do I have a second? Mark? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I have to abstain from that.
As do I.
Okay. We'll move on to personnel. Mark?
I think.
No, we got
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm
No,
skipping.
Superintendent.
It's the paperless, I can't mark them off as I go along.
Good luck.
We have 3 superintendents' reports. Sorry, I was getting us out of here early.
You were, you're being very efficient. However, we do have 3 superintendent reports. For the first one, I'm going to turn this over to our business administrator, Dana Sullivan.
Yes, so every year we are required by the state to have an outside auditor audit our financial statements as well as many other records in the business office. So tonight we have Bob Morrison from the firm of Hodgelick and Morrison. Bob did have an opportunity to meet with the Finance Committee at our last meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the Finance Committee read through the audit report and asked questions, and Bob is here tonight to present to the full board the findings or the results of the audit.
Good evening, everyone. As was mentioned, we did meet on the 15th with the Finance Committee where we discussed many of the audit results, the process, and the best practices in great depth. This is going to be a Reader's Digest condensed version of that meeting, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them now or contact me at the phone number or the email address in the report if you don't want to do it during the meeting. The object of an audit is twofold. The first thing we're looking for is to determine whether or not the financial statements that are prepared by the business office, both monthly, which you see in the board secretary's report, and at the end of the year, are accurate, prepared in accordance with the rules and regulations of both generally accepted accounting principles and the state of New Jersey's rules and regulations, that they're consistent with respect to the application of accounting principles from year to year, and that they are complete, accurate, and do not fail to include anything that needs to be included both in the numbers and in the disclosures that accompany the numbers. We're looking basically for documentation, and then we test those documentation data that we gather. We test the processes by which the documentation is amassed by the finance office and translated into financial reports. The good news is we have no audit adjustments. So what that essentially means is that the monthly reports that you get from your board secretary are accurate, reliable, and you can count on them as a reasonable basis for budgetary deliberations and results. That's not often the case, but it's consistently been the case in Westfield. When we get done, we end up issuing 3 reports. One is our report on the basic financial statements, which deals with fairness, completeness. That report is unmodified, which in accountant speak means that the financial statements were deemed to be fair and accurate, that the rules were all followed, the rules were applied consistently from year to year. Why it takes accountants 3 pages to say that, I don't know, but it does. But that's the gist of that first report. The second thing we issue a report on is the results of our testing of the district's internal controls and its compliance with laws and regulations. We're required to do this based on an additional set of standards promulgated by the Comptroller General of the United States in a book with a yellow cover, hence we call it the Yellow Book. So when we get done doing all the testing that we do, and we perform 40 to 50 different tests on internal control and compliance, as well as testing every item on the financial statements, we issue this report. And basically, the report says that the internal control structure that you have is appropriately designed for a district of your size, that based on our tests, the controls have been placed into operation and are operating effectively. Internal control is all about not stopping a mistake, but if a mistake is made, catching it and fixing it before the data gets to the board in the form of financial statements. We found that to be the case. We also test compliance. The biggest set of compliance tests is the accountability regs published by the Department of Education in the Administrative Code. We didn't find any non-compliances, but those regulations are now coming to the end of their lifetime. I believe they were put in place for a 10-year period, and we are in year 9. What usually happens when the regulations get promulgated or repromulgated is that they make some changes. Some districts take 3 years to 5 years to catch up with them. I would expect Westfield to remain in full compliance because that's been your history. So the second report, we had no findings, no issues with compliance, so that report is also considered unmodified. Finally, we issue a report based on extensive testing of major grant programs. Even though you don't get as much state aid as you used to get, you still get enough state aid and federal aid that we have to expand the scope of our audit to zero in on what's known as major programs. They can either be big dollar programs, they can be new programs, or they can be programs with complex compliance requirements. So we will select major programs and we will do in-depth testing based upon specific compliance regulations promulgated by the federal government and the state of New Jersey. And when we're done, we issue a report on specific compliances with the major programs. Once again, we found that you're operating all of your major grant programs exactly the way the state of New Jersey and the federal government expect you to. So we had another unmodified report. So that's 3 for 3, pretty good. With respect to the district's operations this year, one of the things that we consider to be a best practice that Westfield does is Westfield is constantly looking at the way it provides health benefits to its staff. You've gone in and out of policy-based health benefits. This year was your first year under a self-insurance program. You had very good results, and as a result, you've been able to dedicate some money to tax relief in the 17-18 school budget. The problem with self-insurance for a district your size is that you can't tell whether year one was an actuarial blip or whether you have the equivalent of those people in the old Dannon commercial in Soviet Georgia who lived to be 100 eating yogurt. And I may be showing my age. But essentially, the actuaries usually are right, and you beat the actuarial valuations for this year. So essentially, what you would expect to see over the course of the next several years is that your experience will start creeping up, and at some point you'll reevaluate your health insurance, and you may decide it's time to go back to a policy, because essentially experience follows health and age. So the younger you are, the healthier you are, the lower your experience, the better you do in a self-insurance program. As your staff gets a little older, as your staff develops some of the illnesses that we have in this country these days, it costs more. And at that point, you may want to go back to policy coverage. But the fact that you spend so much time looking at it and evaluating it and making determinations to move in and out saves taxpayers money, and that's the best practice in our eyes. One of the things we talked about when we were at the Finance Committee was the reserves that you've been setting up for capital projects. You're approaching $5 million, and we think that's also a best practice. We were kicking around how much savings in bond interest cost it would be. Before I came here tonight, I looked at the Bond Buyer, which is a publication for the municipal bond trade, and yesterday's bond sales, the average interest rate was over 3%. Now, Westfield, because it has a AA+ bond rating, is a desirable New Jersey bond, you would get better rates than that. But nationally, we're around 3%. And a 20-year bond issue at 3% for $1 million paid off in equal installments of $50,000 would cost the district $315,000 in interest over the life of the bond. The fact that you have close to $5 million that you could use instead of bonds, if you do the math, that comes out to a savings of over $1.5 million. So to the extent that you can take positive budgetary variances and put them in reserves to minimize the amount of bonds you have to sell going forward, you do the taxpayers a great service. Finally, we look at the food service fund, because if the food service fund isn't breaking even or making a profit, the taxpayers have to pay the costs. You're making a profit, so the taxpayers are not funding your cafeteria operations. You have adequate reserves for any unemployment claims that might show up, and your debt is in a manageable state. We noted that in 2015, you did a refunding because interest rates dropped, and you were able to take some old bonds with higher interest rates and swap them for bonds with lower rates. You did another one this July. The one this July resulted in savings of close to $500,000, which will be realized over the course of the remaining life of the bonds, which is about 8 years. So your business office is on top of the things that they need to be on top of. And the district is running the way every district should. So we were very pleased with the results of the audit. And as usual, we always get the complete cooperation of the staff. And we do appreciate that because it makes our life easy. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to field them. And if you don't have any tonight but think of one later, feel free to give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ginny has a question.
No, I don't have a question. Thanks, Rob. It's not for you.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. It's for Dana, and Dana, thank you and your staff for your excellent work in consistently showing appropriate controls and processes that result in this kind of a clean audit.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
And our second superintendent report this evening has to do with the auditorium renovations for our 2 intermediate schools. Those of you who know our intermediate schools know that both of them, the auditoriums, are original to the buildings, and those buildings are not new buildings. So this is something the community approved bonds for, and we're very excited to be starting the process. And Dana, I think I'll let you introduce as well.
Okay, so yes, so we have roughly $4 million in the bond referendum that was approved last year that's dedicated to those two projects. We've been working since the bond was approved. Our architect, George Duthie, has been meeting with numerous staff members at both schools, including principals, as well as Linda King, the supervisor of fine arts. So George is with us this evening to present the plans for both of these schools. And just to talk about the timeline a second, and I know George is going to talk about that as well, we plan to go out to bid at the end of this month, the end of December, open bids at the early February. I think we're hoping to award a contract on February 7th. If everything comes in, the bids are all correct and within our budget. Some of the things like the chairs are very long lead times, so that's why we're starting the bidding process now. And the plan would be to start the construction, the demolition, right after school ends. We don't want to really do demolition with kids in the school because it's very messy and loud. And we hope to have substantial completion by Thanksgiving of next year. The schools are all aware of that, and they're planning their fall plays and musicals around that. So with that, George, you want to come up? This is George Duthie from Freetex Feeds, Hopkins and Duthie.
Just so everyone can see. In the audience, mostly, because handed out basically the same. Good evening again, everyone. I'm George Duthie with FEHD Architects. I'm happy to say that this is a very, very exciting project, and we're moving along. And as Dana mentioned, we are slated to go to bid actually on December 22nd. We'll catch right before the holiday, get the project out to bid through the month of January. And as Dana also said, we're going to hopefully be able to award on February 7th and start ordering materials. I'll tell you a little bit about the projects. And you all remember when the referendum was passed, it was the second question. And since that time, we've done a lot of other projects, as you know. I'm sure you've seen them all. And we're very happy to say that they've been successful. And this project is very exciting. They're both very unique spaces, and I'm sure you've all been inside, or many of you have been inside, and you've seen the uniqueness of the two different schools. By the way, over here. Sure. Yeah, put the pretty one up. Van is busy. Yeah, okay, anyway. Mike is sitting, by the way, one of the things Dana mentioned also is auditorium seating. We looked at systems in great detail for this project. I'll tell you a little bit about that, but Mike is sitting in the auditorium seat. Again, couldn't get Vanna. So Mike is sitting in the seat, and it was already shown to the committee and the stakeholders in the district, and it is a metal seat, and it has nice things like donor plates on it with a 5-year warranty. The seats have a 5-year warranty on it. And then we replace the seats that you have now upholstered seats and backs, actually. So,
Not the brown color.
not in that color. Many colors, wood finishes available. That just happened to be the sample that we could get from the vendor, okay? Now, what I wanted to mention about the auditoriums is that although, those spaces, they're unique in their own right, it isn't our goal to change like the actual volume of the space. We're not looking to like rip ceilings down and rip out walls and do things like. Instead, what we're going to do is a refurbishment of the auditoriums. We're going to modernize them. One big project, as you all know, is air conditioning. But it's not just air conditioning, it's also improving the ventilation system in both auditoriums, the heating, the ventilation, and the air conditioning as well is being added to both spaces. We're replacing the stage lighting, the sound system. The space is going to be acoustically modeled, okay, so that it will perform acoustically in a great fashion for both presentations, for drama productions, and for musicals, okay? So you'll have a great, well-rounded acoustical design. And working with that will be the sound system, which in addition to having, the usual speakers, it's going to have a lot of connectivity in terms of audiovisual capabilities, projection, people bringing devices in from outside. You'll be able to integrate the sound, you'll be able to integrate the projection and technology within the space. There will also be a brand-new lighting system, primarily LED lighting, okay, will be used, fixtures will be used in both auditoriums, okay, which will require replacement of electrical components within the spaces as well as the control systems for the lighting. But much longer lamp life and much more versatility in what those lamps can do for you. Stage lighting, is in LED is a very good option, okay? So we're happy to be able to support that within the budget. Now, we're going to do new paint and wall finishes. I'm going to just kind of walk you through a little bit what we're going to do. You can see in the renderings what's intended for the spaces, and these are computer simulations of what we're planning on doing. But you can see, for example, Roosevelt, we're going to be leaving the ceiling in place, a beautiful copper ceiling. We're going to leave the windows in place, but we're going to provide a variety of finishes. And what you see going on the walls, in addition to the accent lighting, are the different finishes that are going to help with the acoustics, okay? The sawtooth design on the walls, okay? The actual, these clouds, we call them acoustic clouds that hang in front of the stage opening, are all about acoustics within the space, okay? Even chandeliers, very much like what you have there now, modernized, but again, LED lighting, okay? In all of them. So this is the concept for Roosevelt, and don't get hung up on the colors right now. This is just a rendering, and the process of selecting the actual colors of everything will be done at a later date, and that will of course be done just like this design process was done very thoroughly. So there's a balcony at Roosevelt, right? That balcony is going to be used. There are going to be seats put into the balcony. We're going to put the lighting and sound up in the balcony where it belongs, so you can see down onto the stage both the lighting and sound technicians. In addition to, we're going to be adding some additional lighting on the sides of the auditoriums. They're called tormentor bars, okay? So we're going to be enhancing the lighting. So things you do with your lighting now, you're using like your stage lighting to kind of compensate for deficiencies in lighting in other areas. You're going to have a well-rounded lighting platform now, and you won't have any problems. It will also be a completely computerized lighting system. You'll be able to program shows in ahead of time and run those shows just by pushing a couple of buttons on the console. We'll have an iPad, okay, everything will be done electronically, and you'll be able to control those programs and those lighting features and sound features, for that matter, from the portable devices, okay? So that's what Roosevelt looks like. Here's a cross-section through the space. You can see it's a very nice classical auditorium space. And the plan is basically the same. We're also replacing on the stage. The curtains are being replaced. We're adding a new electric projection screen, adding all new lights to the auditorium stage. So you will have a complete connected lighting system, okay? And there will be house lights, which means basically when the show's over, the lights come up, okay? That'll also be LED, so they'll come up in a general fashion, all right? So that's basically what we're doing at Roosevelt School. Edison, so Edison is a more modern space, right? Everybody's been in there, who've been in there, have seen it, and it is different. So we're leaving the ceiling in place, okay? And we're kind of keeping the shape of the room and the volume of the room, and it's the auditorium is actually a different shape, right, than the room at Roosevelt. And again, repeating the same kind of design ideas, the seating, the floor finishes. We're going to have carpet tile or carpet in the aisles, okay? We're going to actually put a polished dine-in finished concrete under the seats, so we don't have to deal with spills. We can just wipe them up. We don't have to worry about replacing carpet or tile later on under the seats. You'll have a pigmented diamond finished concrete under the seat areas, okay? In front of the stage, it won't be carpet. It will be tile, okay? It will be a vinyl tile material, and that's because we want the reflectivity right in front of the stage. We don't want any sound being absorbed by carpet. We want it to bounce off. So again, that was the acoustician's recommendation. Okay, so again, don't get hung up on the colors. A very similar idea of, again, the acoustic materials and the sawtoothing in the walls of the auditorium. The ceiling essentially remaining unchanged. Seating tiers will still remain in place with new seats, and we're going to leave the existing folding walls in there, so they can still be used as lecture tiers if you need to. Okay. Also, we'll be replacing the doors with new wood doors, new hardware, and intruder locks and all that kind of stuff. Okay. So, and that's the plan, again, for Edison Elementary School, the tiers in the back, the seating area, the stage, the seat pictures. So, seats. That's about it for the auditoriums. If there are any questions, certainly willing to answer the questions, if there are any. Jenny?
Hi, George, thank you.
Sure.
That was fabulous. So it is interesting, a curiosity to me. There are 582 seats at Roosevelt
Yes.
and 458 at Edison.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Edison is often the larger population school,
Yeah.
so we will have to be mindful of
Mhm.
that as how does that compare to the current seating?
Well, you're gonna always get a few less seats. You'll
Uh-huh.
get 10 or 15, maybe 20 fewer seats, only because of a couple of things. The way we have to put spacing between the seats now in accordance with the building codes,
Yeah.
okay, which is different than what you were allowed to do before, and the barrier-free positions that we're obligated to add. You will have barrier-free seating positions and buddy seats in both auditoriums. So we are constrained by, what we do have in terms of existing floor space
Right.
and existing conditions. And I think sometimes they do set folding chairs up in here, which you can't really do when these are closed, but there is a little bit of floor space up there on the flat, though. It's on the flat.
The accessible seating, there's 4 accessible seats at Edison in the front, 2 in the back.
Yes.
And Roosevelt has 8 in the front. And I'm wondering if that's a code factor, a formula, or does it also mesh with our current needs?
So,
And how is that compared to our current wheelchair-bound or other student needs?
great question. So right now, you don't have any barrier-free
Right.
seating in the auditoriums, and you don't have the buddy seats, right? And the reason why Roosevelt is different from Edison is because the floor slope is different. We have to put the seats on the flat, right, the barrier-free seating. So this is a flat area of the floor,
Yeah.
okay? And the seats will be in place there. But at Edison, and then the rake of the floor, see, there's a line at the top. There's really no place level to put seats at the top at Roosevelt. At Edison, we have level floor at the top, right? So we were able to introduce some barrier-free seating here, and we were able to mix them up. We like to mix them up if we can. We weren't able to do that really. We're not obligated to, but we'd like to mix them up when we can,
Okay.
okay?
I just think that the district needs to be aware of whatever our current needs are and make sure that this complies with.
Sure, it definitely does
Yeah.
comply with our current needs for students. And then the other part of it is when you have parent events,
Parent
et cetera,
and-
and/or grandparents coming,
Right.
it'll be good to have the additional. I mean, right now, we make do, and we do make spaces.
Right.
But this will, I think, be more welcome, especially with the buddy seats.
Yeah.
That's sometimes hard.
That's a big difference. You can keep the family together.
Right.
And appropriate seating.
Right.
Can I ask a question? Do
Sure.
you- It's not part of the purview of what you're working on here, but I'm just curious what the capacity is at the high school auditorium by comparison, because it sounds like a lot at Roosevelt, but obviously the high school must be a lot bigger.
Yeah, it's a bigger,
I think 1,130 to 50.
Got it.
1,130, 1,150.
Got it, okay, thanks.
Sure. Anything else? Great.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much.
Wonderful.
And Jenny, I echo what was said earlier. It's been a pleasure working with you all these
Thanks,
years.
George.
Okay,
I've enjoyed working with you.
thank you. Thank you, thank you, everyone.
Need a little work on your showmanship.
Anybody want to sit in the chair over here?
You want to try out the chair?
You bet.
Yes, the chair is very comfortable.
Thought maybe you were awarding it to me.
And there is one final superintendent report for this evening, and that is about about Cusack. So Cusack happens to be New Jersey's system of monitoring public school districts. And Cusack happens to stand for Quality Single Accountability Continuum. Now, those of you who regularly watch our board meetings know that on November 1, I reviewed the district's achievement on the 5 key components of district effectiveness under Cusack. Those 5 key components include instruction and program, fiscal management, governance, operations, and personnel. And we were first required as a district to review our achievement of state standards for that, and we found that we had fulfilled 100% of the requirements at each of the, in that stage for each of the 5 components. At the November 1st meeting, the board then approved our submission of that report stating that we had met all of the requirements, and we submitted that to the New Jersey Department of Education. And we have been notified by the Department of Education that they have found us to be a high-performing school district. And with that, as per the state's process, during this agenda under policies, I'm asking the board to approve what the state calls an equivalency application that will be submitted to the New Jersey Department of Education, and we believe they're going to accept it, and if they do, then we will be certified for another 3 years. So under policies, there is a agenda item asking you to approve what is called the Cusack equivalency application, and I believe the state will accept that.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to personnel. Mark? I think that's next in line.
Okay. So I would like the board to consider personnel items 1 through 24. Ginny, second, thank you. Any questions or comments on personnel? Dana?
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Rob Garrison,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Ginny Lights,
Yes.
Peggy Astor,
Yes.
Charles Ostroff,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
That's it for personnel.
Okay. Facilities, Brendan?
Yeah. Facilities Committee met last Friday, discussed several issues. George covered the bulk of our presentation tonight, discussing auditorium renovations. Very excited about those changes and looking forward to seeing those finally get put into place. We also discussed our solar project. Groundwork is going to be starting on that in the next couple of weeks, and we expect substantial completion of the construction to be done by April. Work will be going on while the school is in session, but nothing will be lifted up on top of the buildings, whether it's equipment or materials, while students are in the building. After it's all done, it takes 6 months or so for an upper limit of the window before we get all final approvals. We can turn the system on and actually start saving some money. But we hope that speeds up a little bit. We're going to be looking at replacing equipment in the 2 middle school and the high school cafeterias. We have some money left over in our food service account that has to be used for food service. And replacing old refrigerators and ovens will in turn save us more money on energy. We discussed briefly working with the county to try and change our agreement when it comes to elections, possibly not having a constant set of schools for all elections, but having possibly more schools open during presidential elections or not. A lot of things we have to see what the county is willing to support. Consolidated election sites caused lines of up to an hour in certain schools, in certain precincts. So we're looking at that. In addition, balancing that off with the security concerns.
Brendan, on that note, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Is there a savings to the district, or is there no difference now that the elections have been moved to November if we were to ask and request for additional polling locations? What's the percentage that the school district has to pay for that? Do you know?
We don't pay for anything, but there
So
is a
it's not-
savings now that it's in, we used to pay when it was in April.
No, understood.
Right,
That's why I didn't know if you
right.
had to have a shared cost moving it to
No.
November, or it's just as eaten by the
No, it's
county.
hit
Great.
even by-
We did absorb some costs for security though, correct, Dana?
Yes, this
Yeah.
year we did.
Yeah.
Because it was presidential, we paid for off-duty police officers at 2 schools.
And the last thing, we're looking at our building rental policy. Facilities Committee doesn't yet have a recommendation to the Policy Committee, but it is something we're looking at to try and equalize things across the board. That's it.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Brendan, I just wanted to note, the election site conversation at the schools probably has more to do with a presidential versus non-presidential year.
Correct.
Conflicts of access.
Right, presidential and gubernatorial, to a lesser degree.
Yeah. So I would ask the policy committee to take that into consideration when you're working on the calendar. I know you will, as a very, in a very thoughtful way to try to figure out if the district should remain open the next time there is the gubernatorial election, and especially the presidential election. And we better have an airtight and good reason and story behind what we decide.
Agreed.
I would just point out, I believe the gubernatorial election is next
Next
year.
year.
And
Next
that
year.
calendar's already
Yeah.
been
All right,
approved.
yes.
It doesn't mean it can't be changed, I
Yes,
understand that.
it can
but-
also be, it can always be reviewed. We heard from a number of residents who had concerns, but I think those concerns could have been remedied if we had some of the timing with our security guards, officers, and so forth.
Right, and/or.
And/or staff sitting in the right places at some points.
And/or, you know, the concern is how many entrances are required by
Yes.
the,
Oh.
you know, for the polling. And that's one of the things also to ask the county. When we did make changes a few years ago, they really were very, very helpful. And they honestly have more rules to follow than school districts. That's how many rules they have. It's incredible what they are required to do and what they can't do for polling places, but they were very helpful, so I'm sure they will be again.
Based on the decision that is made for what the board wants to do, whether it holds school during those days or not, maybe we can get ahead of some of the resident concerns by putting out a little more communication about processes and what's going to be in place, and just so that there's an acknowledgement of our interest and heightened awareness of security concerns and safety for the kids.
Yeah, definitely a balancing act.
Yes.
And also, wasn't it discussed at that meeting that people thought that more people had voted in this presidential election, but in actuality it was,
64%. We had 64%
but
turnout,
it was
didn't we?
about the same as the last presidential
Yeah.
election, so.
However, there was an unusual number in some of the wards for between 6 a.m. and about 9 o'clock. That was a very different pattern, and some people suggested that was part of what was on social media. I'm going to vote early today for a variety of reasons, but I'm going to vote early today. And so not in every ward, but in a number of wards, it was that early push, and then it really wasn't in a lot of places.
At 6:30, the line in Edison was already out into the parking lot.
Brendan, we had a conversation about the Soccer Association request for lighting for practice sessions on Kaler Field. Are you not ready to make a?
The committee is not ready to make a recommendation one way or the other.
Okay. Thank you.
There'll be a presentation on January 5th.
Okay. Thanks.
No other questions? Then we'll move on to long-range planning. Ginny?
Yes, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the meeting on November 30th. I was stuck in Florida with food poisoning. The meeting did take place, and you were there, Peggy?
Yep.
And Amy was there, and Rob was there?
No.
No, just the two of you?
Yes.
And Dr. Dolan. So may I ask you to give a report, please?
Okay. I just wanted to give you your last hurrah.
Well, I don't know what took, I mean, I kind of know what took place, but I'm not going to report out since I wasn't there.
There were two things on the agenda, and Amy can jump in at any time with any highlights. We talked about projected enrollment for 2016-17. We're especially looking at Jefferson and Roosevelt because these are going to be identifying factors for us for long-range planning if we need any additional classrooms or anything else and what we should be planning for. I believe Dr. Dolan had thought that enrollment might be going down a little bit going into the future, but we're kind of projecting that enrollment may be continuing to creep up just a little bit, which leads us to believe that we will need to be, or possibly look at a new enrollment study to see what's coming in the future for our schools. Will certain districts be hit heavier with population adjustments and so forth? But we do have, we are watching, a couple of schools and the numbers there and so forth for going into the future. And the other thing that we discussed was full-day kindergarten. And just to begin the conversation of what it would take for us to put it in here in Westfield, the cost, manpower, all the different parts that would be required by the Board of Education to put it into play. We talked about the positives, the negatives, and the importance of getting community input for what their thoughts are on full-day kindergarten. So that was our.
Yep, and there was a discussion of, I guess, in light of what we had done with Lincoln School, it would be lovely to find ourselves in a position to be able to, pop up a brand-new school with lovely facilities, but being mindful of the fact that we're watching enrollment, we're watching development in different pockets of town, curious to see, what is the capacity of Westfield. We may need to be considering other sort of more flexible options, as opposed to a whole new structure or a wing on a given structure, for instance. We may be needing to think a little bit more outside the box, or inside the box, if you will, along those lines. So it sounds like pretty much we need to be thinking of everything as we head forward.
If I had been at the meeting, I would have suggested to you to think very carefully about using the technique of a Citizens Advisory Committee to study the issue. It's a technique that we're capable of instituting through our bylaws as a broad-based group of individuals from the board and the community, including administrators, supervisors, parents, teachers, representative of different educational levels and areas of the town, including parents of current and potential kindergarten students, in order to have a broad representation of community involved from the beginning of the discussions.
Okay, we'll make a note of that for future meetings.
That sounds familiar.
Policies, Chris.
The Policies Committee met on November 29th. We had discussions about the 2018-2019 calendar. We haven't come to any final decisions yet. Some of the items we're looking at is trying to avoid a Monday graduation. I know some of you have asked for calendars or copies of the calendar, so if you have any questions or input, please contact Dr. Dolan or myself. Then we discussed 5 policies, 3 of which are on for first reading tonight. So I would ask the board to consider policies 3125.2, substitute teachers, 3126, district mentoring program, and 3310, academic freedom, for first reading. Can I have a second? Second. Thank you, Brendan. Any questions? Ginny?
My comment is thank you very much for the rewording of the final sentence of 3310, academic freedom.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Thank you for reviewing that. Any further questions?
Good job.
Dana?
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher.
Yes.
Rob Garrison.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Peggy Oster.
Yes.
Charles Ostroff.
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
I would ask the board to consider for approval the submission of the Cusack Equivalency Application, as mentioned by Dr. Dolan earlier. Can I have a second? Charles, thank you. Dana?
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher.
Yes.
Rob Garrison.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Peggy Oster.
Yes.
Charles Ostroff.
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
And finally, I would ask the board to affirm the superintendent's decision on HIB incidents 17F02, 17R02, 17E03, and 17HS01 for the reasons set forth in each of those incidents. Can I have a second? Thank you, Jenny. Dana?
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Gallagher.
Yes.
Rob Garrison.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
I think I have to abstain from these. Thank you.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Gretchen Olive. Oh, she's not here. Peggy Oster.
Yes.
Charles Ostroff.
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
The Policies Committee will meet on January 17th, and I have nothing further to report.
Great, thank you. Move on to curriculum, instruction, and program, and Gretchen is not here this evening. The committee did meet a couple weeks ago. Ginny, would you like to update, or I can update on the art programs that we discussed that day?
I didn't bring anything with me,
That's
Peggy.
fine. I mean, I'm happy to talk about them.
We had a fabulous morning of conversation with representatives of our Fine Arts Department, Linda King, supervisor, and brought a number of teachers with her. I don't have my data with me, of course, I only write it down, and that's how I remember it. But for the most part, these were revised curricula based on content standards, and we saw some examples, some very strong examples of student project work. It's a wonderful group to be within.
Right, and I'd like to reiterate, each of the teachers came with their true passion. It's, to have them come in with bags of examples and students' artworks and so forth, and how proud they were about each of the child's work and so forth is amazing, and the opportunities that we afford our high school students in these arts. One, because we have to, it's mandated by the state for the kids to fill an art requirement, but to see the love that they bring to the class every day is amazing, and how they run it and in limited space and so forth. So it was a true pleasure with meeting them on that day. So I'd like the board to consider items number 1 and 2 under curriculum. Do I have a second? Ginny? Dana?
Mark Friedman,
Yes.
Brendan Galligan,
Yes.
Rob Garrison,
Yes.
Chris Langhart,
Yes.
Ginny Lights,
Yes.
Peggy Oster,
Yes.
Charles Ostrov,
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Mark, finance?
Yes, I would like the board to consider finance items 1 through 16. I'm second. Ginny, thank you. 2 comments. We'd like to accept the gift to Westfield High School, Edison Intermediate School, and Roosevelt Intermediate School of $750 for each school for mental health resources and social emotional development resources. These funds were raised on October 4th, 2016 from the 2nd annual 3-on-3 Get Better basketball tournament for elementary and intermediate school students. So thank you for that. And then also, we'd like to accept the gift of $600 from the Westfield Coalition for the Arts towards the purchase of a reversible whiteboard for the music students at Wilson School. So thank you for that. Any other comments? Dana, did you want to make one comment?
Yeah, resolution number 3, actually, there's 2 resolutions I think I should explain. Number 2 is the roof referendum that we had passed a few years ago. We had $13.6 million approved for the roof referendum, and we wound up spending only $10.1 million of that. So resolution number 2 is actually reducing the ordinance down to $10.1 million because we don't have a need for the other funds. So therefore, we will not sell those additional bonds. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the solar project, which Brendan referenced earlier. Because it's a purchase power agreement and there's several different companies involved in this agreement, the contract for it took a very long time, with our attorneys going back and forth with their attorneys and making sure that all of the i's were dotted and all the t's were crossed. And part of that caused a little bit of a delay. We've also had a little bit of a delay with going back and forth with design changes and whatnot, to be sure it was done correctly. So not a delay that was anybody's fault, but a delay just to make sure that everything was done properly. So one of the things that's being approved in this resolution is the change of the substantial completion date from the end of December to the end of April. Also, when we approved the PPA agreement back in, I think it was in May, we approved it in May. We gave them the right to assign the contract to another company with our approval. They are assigning the contract to NJR Clean Energies. Our attorneys that prepared the contract and that also prepared this resolution are very comfortable with that assignment. It's a very large utility, NJR Clean Energies. So they're very comfortable with them assigning the contracts. So the recommendation is that we approve this resolution and these changes to the PPA.
Through the chair, just had one question on that. Was that anticipated at the time of our approval of the assignment?
Yes.
Because
I think it was
thought that
the timing of it,
boilerplate.
it's not
Okay.
when we knew the timing of when they would assign it, almost like a mortgage is how I understand it. You know, when you have a mortgage and they assign it. So yes, that was expected.
Any other questions, comments? Dana, please?
Mark Friedman.
Yes.
Brendan Galligan.
Yes.
Rob Garrison.
Yes.
Chris Langhart.
Yes to all except number 3. I abstain on that.
Ginny Lights.
Yes.
Peggy Oster.
Yes.
Charles Ostrov.
Yes.
Amy Root.
Yes.
Okay. We'll move on to technology. The Technology Committee met on November 18th, and our Brian Ocker did a presentation of our walls to windows plan that was established, Janine, Mark, how long ago?
A while ago.
When Paul arrived, 5 years ago.
Yeah, 2012.
In 2012?
Yeah, we presented February 2012.
Yeah.
February 2012, and we went over basically where we started and where we are today, and that we're almost close to finalizing all of the hardwiring of the systems within the schools. We spent a lot of time discussing really making sure that now we're using the system as efficiently as possible. That our teachers are up to speed, that everybody's getting the help that they need to become up to speed, and where we want our teachers to go in using technology at all levels of the school. We talked about what we see in going into the future, some of our needs, about having resource people available so that if the teachers have questions and problems and so forth, what we need there. Some new high school courses possibly that deal more with computer type things. I'm not a computer person. More classes that are more, how should I say, present in the computer world.
Can I just,
Go ahead.
because
You can jump in.
what was discussed and Mark brought up, it's more of an e-commerce type class, trying to take into account where technology is going, how it relates to retail, everything else, and marketing, and even trying to, parlay it into some level of history and learning and economics. So really taking a modern tint on the world today and trying to apply it in the classroom.
I offered to teach, but I wasn't allowed.
But we took that even further to say, could there be other classes that we could possibly
Correct.
enhance with the computer age, and now that we have the availability in the classroom to use computers and so forth, and making sure our curriculum is up to date in reference to that perspective. And we talked a lot about Google Classroom and how it could help us with, the BYOD programs and so forth. So we will continue to discuss, how we implement the computers in the schools, what additional hardware type things we may need, and so forth and so on. So
Good job.
this little computer thing that I keep open here. Okay. I'd like everybody to consider the notes for the record. Does anybody have any questions or? Okay. The hard thing is I gotta click back and forth between two screens here. Do we have any unfinished business? Any new business that needs to be discussed?
I have a question, and I think it's new business. It's about the paperless board communications, and I'm wondering, Dana, maybe you have a little insight into this. When there's an agenda list, is there a way to tie the attachment
It is.
to the agenda item on the list itself, so that you could hot link it right next to its item,
It is.
as opposed to at the
It is.
bottom?
It is.
In the agenda, it is hotline.
Well,
It depends on which screen you're on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but
Not on Chris's.
there's different attachments.
Yeah.
So if you can, if you can get to finance from, you just tap on finance and you go right to the.
It's a blue color for it.
Oh, okay.
But
So you don't
some
have to go
screens,
and
it's not
seek
like
the
that.
attachment, you can actually just
You
see
can
it
just click on it,
underlined.
Right, but then the way it's set up in finance, if we refer to attachment one,
Yeah,
the way it's set up right now, we don't have that then as another attachment, and the reason that we did that is because if we make a change to something, then we're gonna have, and it's gonna, so that's why we didn't do that. What we might try for next board meeting to see what works better for you guys is, I can put attachment one, like if attachment one goes with personnel, I can put attachment one at the bottom of personnel.
I would,
So
yeah.
that you just scroll down and you can see attachment one. The only problem is you're not gonna see it from the front page then. So if you wanna see attachment one, you have to go into what it goes to. But we'll try that next time and you can see what you like better and then we'll go from there.
Is there a way to do like an 8, like finance was number 12? Can you do a 12A and have 12A be the attachment to finance?
No,
I know.
underneath,
That's what I had.
well, I might be able to do underneath finance, I probably can say attachment 12 or
Yes.
something.
Right.
Oh,
And then do it there.
Oh, yeah,
I can probably do that.
That was my suggestion,
Yes.
so that it's actually visibly co-located and then
Yeah.
accessible within that
I
topic.
think I can do that, and we'll have to just think, I'll play with how to phrase, how to put that on there that it makes sense. But I think I can do that. And then we'll try it different ways and then we'll determine what works best.
Ask Siri.
I asked Randy a question today and got an answer, right away, which was great, because we'd had a couple updates to the agenda, and I
Oh,
asked her if
multiple.
there was any way to make a note to indicate what the changes were.
Yeah.
And so the last update indicated the changes, so
Yeah.
that was exciting.
And like the finance one, we put it in red, so when you saw it went in there, you
Yeah,
can see
you pick
exactly
that
what we
right up,
changed.
yeah.
Yeah, so.
I think she had said there was a revisions tab or something
Well,
that you could go up,
we
but I
thought there
couldn't
was,
find that.
no, only her and I could see
Oh,
it.
okay.
That's why we thought you guys
Oh,
could see
okay.
it, but we were like, what, it's right there. But you guys couldn't see that, only the person doing the agenda
Oh,
could see
Only
that.
the administrator.
That's the part that we're, obviously, we're new at this as well, so we're struggling a little bit with it, but, overall, I think.
I thought it was great. I thought you
Yeah,
guys
worked
did a
very
great
well,
job.
yeah.
Very good.
Nice work.
Was that new business or unfinished business?
That was new.
That was new business, okay. Do we have any liaison reports?
I have one. I was at the town rec committee last night, so just to keep us updated, they are meeting with the township finance committee to discuss the lighting of the fields in Tamaqua. So that's ongoing, and hopefully that'll move right along. And the other item is they either are going to be or have been in touch with Sandy about supplying AED devices at all our sporting events. I think the town's going to purchase a number of them, and hopefully make them available to us. So
We
that's
have
the
some
report.
available already. but-
Yes, I know we
but
do, and I
any-
think I guess they went through a variety of the different ones. There's new ones that kind of do everything for you,
Mhm.
administer a shock if it's necessary.
Yeah.
So they may be in touch with us for that.
And where would they keep those? Like if you were playing on Franklin School Field? per
Yeah,
se?
I guess there's a consideration about where they'd be located in the fields and what kind of containers and how accessible they'd be. So that's all ongoing right now.
Great.
Thank you.
Small plug, I think a couple meetings ago, I said that the Special Education Parents Committee was gonna be scaling back a little bit this year. But they had another event in November, that I just wanted to make a small plug for next year, because I do think it's gonna be an ongoing thing. They've done it for a few years now. The day before, the high school puts on their big college night, where there are over 100 schools represented, and they are spread out all over the high school. The day before that, the Wednesday night, the Special Ed Parents Committee put on more of a smaller, more focused event, only in Cafeteria B. It's a panel discussion, and they have some, Maureen Mazries was there from our counseling department, of course. There were some various consultants from the area talking about what types of programs are available at schools for parents with children who have special education needs. And there's proliferating opportunities out there for kids. So there were also some representatives from some of the schools talking about what they're offering. So it was a really helpful evening. I think you may be able to link to some of the information on the Special Education Parents tab, I think, on the website. But just something to keep in mind about for people in the community. It's a great resource to take advantage of.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize the public for questions and/or comments. Okay, if not, we're going to head upstairs for our workshop to discuss the budget guiding change document.
And then we come back into,
Then we go, that's,
It's
the
public
the
and-
workshop is public,
and
and then we'll
private.
adjourn and go into private session following that. Okay. Thank you, everyone.